Next up is Tom Steinberg, who's you should listen to far more than you should listen to me.
Let me start by saying how glad I am to be here, because for a while it looked like Gov2 was going to clash with my grandmother's death panel, but then they decided she didn't deserve one, so here I am. So my name is Tom Steinberg. I'm the director of mySociety, and we are a British non-profit that builds stuff like this stuff, if someone can actually put the slides up. Well, anyway, we run a thing called Fix My Street, and Fix My Street gets your street fixed. You basically stick a pin in a map, type in the details of a problem, or you use a mobile phone application. The server then works out who in government is responsible for this problem, which isn't an easy task, and it sends it to them. And all the reports are public, and the website works anywhere in the country. Most pleasingly, it works is the operative word. The fix rate is about 50%, meaning that in this year coming there will be tens of thousands of real things in the streets of Britain that get fixed. Just here you can see some evidence of the terrible mozzarella crisis in our country at the moment. But the good news is that, you would be able to, except it's not up there. But we have that problem is fixed along with many, many others. We also run a service called What Do They Know? What Do They Know is a service that helps people ask the government for information under the Freedom of Information Law, although it doesn't scare users by telling them about what Freedom of Information Law is unless they ask. The clever bit is that when they make a request to the government for some information, they say, please tell me how many rubber bands there are. The request is archived and put online, and the answer is archived and put online. So it's all made. It's an archive that is generated out of self-interest of the users straight away. The answer to how many rubber bands, as I was going to show you, is 870 million bought by the post office last year. We also run a thing called theyworkforyou.com. They Work For You tells people who their politicians are, how those politicians voted, where they get their money from, what they said in Parliament most recently, and in a statistic that we gather ourselves, and that I particularly like, whether or not they're any good at actually writing back to their constituents. If you're British and your representative is alive, we have everything they've ever said in Parliament, no matter how long they've been there. They're not all alive. We also run the Prime Minister's petitions website, not the whole website, just the petitions bit where people can make and sign petitions. It has over 10 million signatures on it, and since Britain's 5 times smaller than the US, you can work out what that would mean over here. Now, I've rattled through those things really, really quickly because I want to move on to some lessons and some appeals. The people who are coming after me aren't going to like these lessons in some ways because they are things to look out for in other people's projects. Things that mySociety would say made a good Gov2 project as opposed to ones that you shouldn't bother with. So the first lesson is that great Gov2 projects combine services that normal people, kind of people who don't care much about politics or transparency, want with transparency, even if they're not interested in it. Fix My Street gets problems fixed, but all those problems become public and become part of the kind of public debate about problems. What Do They Know helps people get stuff out of the government, but it builds an archive at the same time. I think that coming together of services and transparency is a kind of a thing that the internet can do that used to be really difficult to do before the internet, and that's why we should seize upon it. So the second lesson is actually a rule. The first rule of Government Data Mashers Club is that you do not talk about Government Data Mashers Club, at least not in front of your users. Now, I'm being facetious here. I love structured data. I'm a big campaigner in Britain for it. I led the government's review on getting more of it out. All I'm saying is that you should always be cautious about a site that presents itself as being about data to the public, except of course, data.gov, which has an exception. What the public needs and wants is kind of, is my politician any good? Are my streets okay? Is my health all right? And you need enormous amounts of data to deliver those services well, but you don't necessarily have to lecture them about how lucky they are. So, next, a great Gov2 service has benefits that are easier to describe in hardly any words. Like almost everything mySociety does can be described in a few words. Fix My Street gets your street fixed. It's a great test of projects to see whether people are capable of describing them in just a few words. It's a big, big clue if they can't, that they may have created a great big kind of complex thing that may not ever actually matter to anybody. Lastly, you can help government reform yourselves by bolting interfaces onto the platform of government, even before the platform of government has been built in a true kind of Tim O'Reilly sense. We're just starting to see, for example, that local governments in Britain are beginning to go to us and say, can we use a standard API to interlink with Fix My Street? Now, we would never have succeeded if we'd written them papers and we'd got politicians to make a change, and we'd pushed and we'd shoved. It was actually just basically kind of doing it. And I think the best quote here, the quote you should all have on your walls, is from Clay Johnson. It says, coding is quicker than consensus, and this is a famous phrase in my view. Get it printed out, get it framed, it will do you good. My last 2 minutes are 2 appeals. The first is as a technologist, the second as a very unlikely US citizen. I am actually pretending here. Fix My Street in this country. Your citizens deserve services that have that kind of usability of a single national service that hides the splinter of federalism. And it's challenging because of the federalism, which is precisely why you should do it. Because if you can overcome that, you'll have done something amazing, and you'll have a really simple example that will give legitimacy to investment in loads of other things. People understand potholes and getting them fixed. If you can make that measurably better, so they say, do you remember the time before that? Then the likelihood that they will say, please, can we have some more of that? And the money and the energy will flow in that direction just goes up a lot. You can even have the name fixmystreet.gov if you want. We won't sue. The second appeal I actually do make as a US and a UK citizen, as a dual national. I want my government here to be braver than my government there in one particular regard. I want it to be brave by acting as if it is genuinely more important to bring together citizens for a stronger civil society than it is to stop a bad news day. Let me explain exactly what I mean here. We run that petition site, but I've never been able to persuade them to say, the people who made those petitions, they should have the right to mail the people who sign them, their own people, their own supporters. Because if you do let them sign those people, they can create new groups about issues and NGOs that don't exist in this country. They can challenge the status quo in the NGO sector in the way that new companies challenge challenge the status quo in the commercial sector. And you, the government, have an awesome opportunity to do this because people come together at your web services to do stuff, but you don't let them collaborate, you don't let them talk, you don't let them get together because it might be a bad news day. If they did that with our roads, if they said you cannot use our roads to go to political meetings because you might make a bad news story, there would be a revolution. We need a revolution in this field. So that's it. That's what mySociety does. We're this non-partisan open source group, so you can have all of this code if you want. We do things that try and make a difference to the lives of citizens, and we'd really like to help all of you do the same. So please come and talk to me later on. Thank you very much.